A few points then. God has all thoughts, but what he chooses to value, what he chooses to hold as his values and exercise and create from are a particular, consistent of course, subset. The more of that subset you have in your true personhood with him, well, the more in harmony you are with him, you see, and have access to the whole of his plan. You know, it's a question of degree. In a sense, I think I'm following the understanding that your individuality is your sonship. Even as an adult in heaven, that you don't have all the picture of God yet. You have a particular mix of that which is of God, and your adultness is an acute lack of exercising values that are not exercised by God. So there may be two aspects of your individuality. If you like, one, the perfectionist side, which is that which you hold with God in common with him. Sorry, not just, hold, exercise. In other words, your values that are the same as God, and a lack of, if you like, most of, or shall I say, you have very few values that are not in harmony with God. And is it the case that you come to earth, this universe and so on, to get rid of those? Perhaps it's the case that it's either not possible or very hard to have an identical sense to God, because that makes you God with him. You could say this is the perceived oneness, but it loses your separate identities and therefore is not fellowship, it's oneness. Oneness doesn't know fellowship unless there's also some with whom you're not quite one with. But the not quite one withness of that person is best eternal, to be eternal, to not have the negative values that God does not hold in his personality, in his personhood. So we come to earth to get rid of those, what the Buddhist would call stains, what the Christian might call a fault that causes Satan to fall. In fact, let me put it this way, minor faults that you've come here to dust up and clean up and remove. And that's what your passage here is, your education, your childhood. Getting rid of the things that quite simply are not godly, that would have been lurking there, destroying your eternity and your completeness of blessedness. You see, God is complete, and you as an adult become complete. That is your adult place in heaven because of your achieved personhood. But God is infinite and ever evolving. And you're not necessarily keeping up with him or even approaching where he was, if you know what I mean. And we're talking as if it were a time concept here, and I'm not sure about that. Do you see? I'm holding the view that God is ever before us and ever greater than us. I mean, if you like, we're young men and women, we're young adults. The older adults are far more mature and experienced. But we are of the same sort, you see, because we're of the same family. Eternal, if we've got rid of these stains, so to speak, these few values that are still floating around that are not, if you like, quite consistent, not the same as the mix that God has. We're fine-tuning in heaven still, or we're needing it rather, and we come to earth to get fine-tuned, that we might return to heaven an eternal being that's ever following our dad, but still following our dad. I mean, we interact, we relate, we exchange, but in some sense, he's ever, well, I'm not sure how far ahead of us because he wants fellowship. He doesn't have himself too far ahead of us. He likes to keep us up, that he might have full fellowship with someone as competent as himself. It's something of that. I've not quite got it. Don't get me wrong, you know. Don't lock yourself into what you think I might be saying. It's just here for you to, well, hopefully be blessed by. Of course. And by the grace of God you will be. Love you, Dad. Love you, Dad. We love you, Dad. Thank you, Dad.